This is a pit stop. It is one of many colorful scenes which represents a motor race. It is the culmination of many efforts which go to create these scenes. There is no way of determining the motives involved. They are undoubtedly complex and prodigious. They run the gamut from simple frustration to genuine sportsmanship. All that is known for certain is that a group of people from all over the world pack up their sports cars, in trailers, in crates, on boats, even in airplanes, and embark for a predetermined spot in order to establish the superiority of one car and driver over another. There are no two cars alike and no two drivers alike. Because of this, there are never two races alike. It is up to the organizers, then, to do what they can to set up a framework within which all drivers and cars will fit with a moderate degree of tolerance, and within which races can be run with a reasonable degree of safety and enjoyment. The scene which to the spectator is so intriguing and exciting, the color of the cars and the trailers, garages usually catering to prosaic Ford station wagons and the like, now bristling with Monzas, D's, Mark 11s, and Giuliettas, mechanics buried feverishly beneath the hoods, chattering in Italian, French, or English, the astounding number of shorted, tanned young ladies trying to compete with camshafts, a really beautiful work of art, languorously draped over the fender of a Lotus, portends a misery of confusion and difficulty to the organizer. His first attempt to coat cars and drivers with a superficial veneer of similarity is technical inspection. Here the cars must pass certain rigid tests concerning tires, body, engine leaks, and brakes. Of all the sounds involved here, brake tests are the most outstanding and the most terrifying. One never hears them without expecting to hear a dog yelping or a crunch of fenders. When a car has satisfied the scrutineers, it is given a seal of approval to put on the windshield or the side of the body, and can then go off to practice. And practice means practice for everybody. Drivers on the course, mechanics practicing pit stops, timers checking the scoring system, the lovely girls again trying their hand at the stopwatches, and the organizers practicing organization, and they never seem to get enough. Faced with 50 or 60 impatient drivers with overheating cars on the starting line, race communications, a little matter of several miles of wire strung haphazardly over the infield, always seem to break down. Practice is a feeling out period for the drivers. Since there is usually a practice race held prior to the main event, the practice period is simply an opportunity for the driver to get used to the course without worrying about his competition. He concentrates on the varying problems which face him on the circuit, the idiosyncrasies of his car, and since rebuilding it may have developed a whole new set, and the surface, the pit location, the flag system, and the invariably inadequate race communications. He makes a mental note of all he wishes altered, and after practice he notifies the mechanic of the ones which pertain to the car, and takes to the driver's meeting all which pertain to organization. The organizer stands before the meeting, as before a firing squad, and attempts to satisfy everyone. The first question is always about communications. At Nassau, Red Cries, the organizer, came up with an alibi that will never be topped.
Today we had a rather, shall we use the word, unique situation again. But after you've been to the Bahamas a while, you learn that we do things differently here. The wire was in place. foot by foot. It was hooked up properly. But one of the helpers, when he got to splice a piece of wire, he did it in an entirely different Bahamian fashion. He didn't strip it and tie the two pieces of copper together. He tied a knot in it. You know, you may laugh at that, but that actually happened, and we didn't discover it till about 3/4 of the way through the entire practice period, which we struggled through by way of radio. And we finally reached this knot. Tonight we have perfect telephone communication, and we will learn for next year. So that, as I say, learn to live the way we live in the Bahamas. It's different. Even for wacky. Let's get into the questions. We want to get out of here tonight. The bars are waiting.
The Marquis de Portago goes on to more serious matters.
All right.
On behalf of Stirling Moss, Carol Shelby, Phil Hill, Jonathan Gregory, and myself, we would like to know how many starters you're going to have in the main event on Sunday.
I'll tell you that when I count the missing connecting rods and the burned out bearings on Sunday.
Well, yes, but we feel that...
We have no limit.
Well, the FIA regulations...
The FIA does not tell me how many cars I start. I'll tell you Sunday morning. Another question?
Stirling Moss returns to the number of starters, and things get a little tense.
Now, inasmuch as you brought the starters up, okay, Master, I'll get to you. I've watched you. And we're not going to run 50 because we started 86 last year.
Too many.
Just a minute. I'll be with you in a minute. I have lost you. We had 120 entries for one reason. We're 3,000 miles from some people. We're 4,000 miles from others. We're 1,500 miles from others. But we're awful close to broken rods, burned pistons, broken front ends, and lousy driving. And we've got all of it here. Now let's stop kidding. This thing automatically handles itself. No fool is going to allow more cars on that track Sunday than is safe. Keep that in mind. That is the rule as far as the organizers are concerned that we're going to go by. Master.
Yeah, just for the record, I still think there were too many cars in the race last year. I hit one in the middle of a fast corner, which didn't cause any serious incident. It could have. It spun me a lot of time and moved him forward quite a bit.
Gentlemen, I fully appreciate your applause. I hope that a lot of you who are applauding realize that if you were to go by the suggestion made, you might not be running Sunday. Just a minute, gentlemen. We're going to talk one at a time, and I feel fully confident to answer your question. I will say this, as the organizer, again, I'm going to repeat, I don't know how many cars are starting Sunday, but when we get up to that point, we're only going to start a safe number. But as far as 4 and 5 cars in a turn, I'm not concerned.
I'm not wide up missing something.
The width doesn't make any difference if you don't run in the cars.
All right, let's put it this way, and we're going to eliminate this portion of the argument by saying this. When we get up to Sunday's races, we have a very competent gentleman from RAC who is going to decide it. It's going to be his decision. He's the boss of this race. He was sent over for that purpose. And he's going to decide if he feels that our field is not suitable, that there are too many. And I will say this unreservedly for anybody in the Bahamas Automobile Club, we will go by his decision. Let's end that particular phase of this meeting.
A bump in the middle of the fast corner is a bone of contention.
How about the bump?
Please, all right, let's get to the bump. Now, what are we going to do? The bump. Figure it out. Sterling! Hey, Sterling, they just answered your question.
Last year.
We're going to... No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
You are the man who took it out.
Was there
All right,
last year.
we're going to
Maybe
leave
not
it.
the same, but it was there.
It was there, but we ran around it.
You can go around it.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll leave the bump in, and this automatically will answer Stirling's question of 50 cars. There should be 50 left for Sunday. So we're in business. Another question.
The division of classes always provides many fruitless hours of discussion. Discussion results mostly in ridiculous solutions, occasionally sensible ones. This one falls into the former category.
Gentlemen, a good question. Their production, as you know, under FIA rules, covers anything with 4 tires as long as it's a Ferrari.
Or indeed Jaguar.
Yeah. All right, now, this year, in order to give some of these road cars that we have in Nassau, who are having a fine time, and who we certainly welcome to be with us, we're going to have a coin, a new class, and up to, I think it is 2,800 and over 2,800, there will be 3 places in what we are going to call stock production. Now, gentlemen, let me tell you what a stock production car will be. And remember, this is something similar to the Art Bunker. You better listen to this. You brought it up. A stock production car will be one that is used on the road as a production car. And I don't want to hear Tago say that his 13 is driven around Paris. This will be limited to cars that are driven on the road as production cars, and you all know what I mean. Bumpers, windshields, a regular car. Oh, Spiders are stock production, but they're not stock production. I haven't seen one parked on Fifth Avenue yet.
Now we come to starting systems.
Stirling, may I ask you this question? In most European Grand Prix races, they hold up a 3-minute placard, a 2-minute placard, and a 1-minute placard. In other words,
5, 3, 2, 1.
What is it?
The flag goes up 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2, 1, and the flag goes up at 10 seconds to go, and it's counted down 5 from the hand.
All right. Do you understand what he means? Would you much rather have that sort of a placard system than use the full clock showing the 60 seconds?
Yeah. I couldn't get 5 placards painted by tomorrow if I stood on my head in Nassau. So here's what we'll do. Wait a minute. We'll have 5 men if you wish. And they'll walk off until there's 1 man. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, wait a minute. Hey, gentlemen, that's discrimination. We'll have 3 girls and 2 men.
And in the end, the organizer throws up his hands and hopes for the best.
You can do anything you feel like. We love you dearly. All right, gentlemen, we'll see you out in the field in the morning.
There will now be a great rush for the bar.
Now begins the gamesmanship of motor racing. In the practice race, drivers watch each other like hawks. Mechanics sneak around to the other man's pit, measuring tire wear, looking for blown gaskets or anything that might indicate difficulties in the opposition camp. Moss, quite unintentionally, provided many nervous moments by not even showing up for the practice race. Surprisingly enough, this was not practiced psychology, but simple circumstance over which he had no control.
Bill Lloyd's very kindly lent me his 3-litre Mazda, which looks very nice. I didn't know whether he put a new front on it because he had a little accident, which I'd like to hasten to say wasn't his fault, according to everybody I've spoken to. But he did have a little accident with the front, and looking at the car, I wondered if there was any tin underneath all this sort of sticky paper here, but apparently there is, or aluminium.
Portago expressed no fear about his major competitor.
Fortunately for us, Stirling's driving a very old car, and I don't think he has any chance of keeping up with us.
Are the straights too long?
Well, the straights are too long, and naturally we have much better acceleration.
Phil Hill, last year's winner, started off with great speed and was running well until a stone broke his goggles, and he came coasting into the pits with blood streaming down his face.
Get a doctor.
Right away.
Doctor here? Doctor. Doctor, yeah, man.
I thought I was blind. I opened my eye and I couldn't see a thing, and it was because of this.
Sure.
I mean, you know. I'm blind, that's what I thought.
So young.
Boy, did I go up the road. In the first turn.
Oh, man.
Really fouled up.
Slicker in hell, I meant to tell you.
Really?
Slammed off.
Want a hanky? You're gonna light over here, Joe.
All right.
Close your eye gently. Close your eye just gently.
It's not in it.
Give me some plain water. What? Give me some plain water, some drinking water or something.
Look over that way. What? Somebody say something?
Does it feel out, Phil?
I think so, man.
Yeah, there's nothing in there. It just hit a piece of the eye, but it'll be all right. It's a pretty little abrasion.
It's out, then it's all right.
Who the hell was that? I even forgot who it was. Who was it that threw the stone?
You mean you didn't get his license number, huh?
I think it was,
What's the deal? How do you feel?
I feel fine, but somebody broke my goggles. What police force I am?
Fourth place.
Fourth?
Yeah. We try to give you a sign just before that.
Who's in front of me?
Well, Shelby, Mortem, and Fitch.
I passed Fitch.
And you were in
You
third
did
place.
you in third place?
Yeah.
Third place.
I passed Fitch.
What happened to the first time? The whole back end.
Oh my God! I went off the road. Something awful.
I can see it on the
The
top.
whole
I
back
didn't
end
flew
of the
over.
goggles car was knocked off.
His lid is,
I was 9/10 of the way around the corner, and all of a sudden I hit something. Wow!
how many laps did we do?
14, I think. 15.
Didn't I see a sign from you that said something laps to go?
Yeah, 10 to go.
I thought I was blind when this happened.
Portago drove exceedingly well and very fast. In fact, had just passed Carroll Shelby in the 4.9 Ferrari when he ran into an Austin Healey and lost his lead.
You know, I got a good lead on him then, and then, gee, what do you think, Phil?
I think it should be reported there. What happened to him? What happened to him after he got the lead? I mean, this guy.
Well,
hit
look,
him
this
and
guy ran into him.
Yeah.
Look at this. And boy, really ran into him.
Yeah, sure did. When did this happen? Early in the race?
No, this happened, I saw it about 4 laps ago.
Huh.
Yeah, the last 4 laps. Just right after he passed Shelby, somebody ran into him.
Austin Healey?
I don't know who the hell did it.
Some drivers, undergoing severe losses, expressed their feelings with nonchalance and bravado. Just blown up your Maserati. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll have to buy another one.
So, Shelby won.
You won it, eh?
Oh, I know.
36.
Yeah, that,
No, but it wasn't. It was an Austin Healey that hit me.
yeah. That Corvette put me right out in the grave. Right in the middle of
You
it.
nearly lost it the next lap, huh?
Huh?
You nearly lost
Oh,
it.
yeah. Good race. Your brakes aren't even warm.
Good.
Hell, they're not even warm. Don't lean on it, please.
And while the results were not unlike what everybody had expected, the manner in which they came about was unique. Such are the vicissitudes of racing. Drivers, mechanics, tanned young things, all retire to ponder the results and to contemplate their own chances for the big race. If there is time enough before race day, you gradually notice that a single subject becomes more and more popular. It may be the condition of the surface. It may be weather conditions. It may be wrong gear ratios. Or, as it was at Nassau, it may be tires. By Sunday, that was all you could hear. Here, before the race, are Phil Hill, Portago, Moss, Bill Lloyd, John Fitch, and Jim Kimberly.
Well, they must have plenty of tires. He's got a pretty damn good set on here right now. Yeah.
How far have you run so far? About 15 miles, no?
A total of about, let's see, only 10 laps on the tires that we've got. That's half of the race today. And we've used over half the tires.
What do you got on now? New ones?
No, I got enough that just if I drive easy now, I can just finish nicely.
Do you think you're going to be able to make this this race on one set of tires?
No, I don't think so, Bill. I think it'd be very, very dangerous to even try. Last year, as you know, I won the race and made it just by the skin of my teeth. I had about 2 laps left, the cord showing on one tire. And although the distance is the same and the car is the same, I think the circuit, I think a little more of the binding asphalt between the coral bits in the road has gone this year, and that makes the surface even more abrasive. So I think my odds for making it non-stop are non-existent.
Do you think any of the lighter cars, like Stirling Moss, who's driving, I think, a 3-liter, do you think he has a chance of getting through without a tire change?
I think so. I think that you'll see in all classes a good deal of foxiness going on as to who's going to change tires when, or whether or not they change them at all. It should be quite interesting, actually.
I'm not going to chase them today. Carroll Shelby and Phil Hill. I'm going to stay behind because I think they're both going to have to make a pit stop. And I'm going to try and go out through the race without a pit stop. I hope I can.
I did 3 laps, but I stopped just about each lap because we had this problem with the wrong tires on it. So I don't know what it's like with the Maserati yet.
How is the tire situation?
The tire situation, I really don't know. We've got virtually new tires on. So I suppose if the others last through, ours might.
Try and go through without a stop.
Pardon?
We're going to have to go through without a stop, you think?
Well, I don't know. We're going to have to try to go through without a stop, because I think one can't afford a stop unless everybody does, all the fast cars. And anyway, I think that it would be a very nice thing if people like Pratago had a stop to give me a chance to catch up with them.
Want to answer?
No.
Well, we have Pirellis, and we're pretty sure of them.
All of us have had second choice on tires, just about. We couldn't bring many tires over, and the conditions here are different from what we expected. We need long-wearing tires, and the consensus is that a certain type has a better road-holding quality on this surface here. But unfortunately, there's a shortage of that type. I don't have the tires I want, but then I don't think few of us do.
Well, tires will be a problem with the big cars, but I don't think there'll be a problem on the car by side. I think we'll go through 210 miles without any trouble.
Of course, there are the usual other topics of conversation.
How do you like the course?
I think it's quite nice, but in my opinion, it's a bit too wide, and the definition is rather poor. It isn't marked well. And the fact that it's wide enables the smaller cars to take an entirely different line than the faster cars, and consequently they all meet at the apex of the various corners, and that makes it difficult for everyone.
We noticed there were a lot of cars that were banged up in practice. Was yours banged up at all?
No, it wasn't, but I was lucky.
We noticed you spun a couple of times. We noticed Portago spun and some of the other boys. What's causing all the spinning?
Well, the surface is very unpredictable. You can't tell just exactly where the sand is going to be, and if you're in the least bit of a rush, which is the whole idea of the thing, you're going to find yourself on one of these slick places now and then, and it's just a matter of trying to find the right balance between your efforts and what the physical requirements of the course are.
Well, I hope to have a little better luck than I had on Friday when I crashed into an Austin Healey when I was leading the race, and this was 2 laps from the end.
How did that happen?
Well, it was dark, and I didn't see the Austin Healey until I'd committed myself to a certain line in this 90-degree corner, and once I've committed myself, there's nothing I can do.
There's an awful lot of banged-up iron at this track after a couple of days of practice racing.
That there is.
How do you account for it?
I wouldn't like to venture an opinion.
Well, would you say too many people on the track?
Far too many drivers on the track.
How's that sand treating you?
Well, it's not so bad now as it was the first day, but I still don't think anybody will beat last year's lap record.
Well, I would never discount Stirling. He can do an awful lot with an awful little. Not that I think the car's an awful little.
How's that sand out there? Well, I guess it makes it a bit slippery. There's one thing about it. If we drop oil, they don't need to throw any more sand down. They've got a pretty good coating all around it.
As the Maserati is usually drop oil.
Listen to who's talking. Would you like to call this race, omitting yourself, of course? What do you mean, who's going to win it? Yeah. Well, that's a jolly difficult thing. If you come to me at 6 o'clock, I can give you an accurate idea who's going to win it. But I would say that, personally, I should think it's between Carroll and Thon and maybe Phil Hill. I really don't... It's very difficult on a race like this because it's fairly long. And with a bit of luck, we might get some rain. I don't know, the cloud's clearing now, unfortunately. If we get a bit of rain, I think it'll be a lot better. Anyway, for some of the slower cars. I win this race, I shall be more surprised than anybody, believe me.
And while the drivers are chatting among themselves, the mechanics are busy with last-minute preparations on the car. Here, a mechanic warms up Phil Hill's 3.5 Ferrari. Then the cars go to the starting line. Here's Portago taking off.
Allora, faccia modo e vede il secondo che tirare.
And Phil Hill receiving last-minute instructions from George Tilp.
What? I'll be down there after the 12th or 13th lap.
All right.
If you see me, please just wave once.
All right, I will
know
do
that
it.
what I'm doing, you know
All right.
what's going on.
All right. Thank you.
Here's Stirling Moss taking off in his 3-liter Maserati. And then, by way of the much-loved and immensely exciting LeMans Start, the race is on.
Keep your eye on that stride. When you move right back to one side within 5 seconds, or 4 seconds, and 3, and 2, and 1, and go,
Shelby made a magnificent start and began to set a toll-taking pace, but he himself was the first to fall. After 10 laps, only 35 miles, he came in with his rear tires in shreds. Portago jumped into the lead, but before long he too came in for tires. wasn't long before the entire pit area was so crowded with cars coming in and leaving that it presented quite a hazard. Shelby lasted another 10 laps, came in again for tires. A harassed Portago came in again.
What happened, Bill? Well, want me to be frank? I goofed. What happened? I was sort of going a little too slowly, not paying too much attention to what I was doing, trying to save the rubber. And I got off on the soft stuff on this bend down here and slid into one of those barrels that are spaced at 50-foot intervals. I couldn't even get between them.
Filled with tar.
All right.
What happened to your car?
It broke the gas tank.
How are your tires holding up?
Beautifully. I think I was doing a very good job of saving them. Look it. I think they would have made it with about 10 laps to go. But I think I was thinking too much about the tires.
What did you hit, Bill?
One of those stupid barrels.
On the S's? Did you get out the sand or something?
What?
Did you get on the sand?
Yeah, I got off on the sand. I mean, always going through there very slowly, without a lot of control, just making sure I wasn't skidding, you know? And that isn't conducive to real good control, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, there you are.
Oh, when you coming out?
Just going into the first one.
Oh, yes.
I got a little bit too far over on the left into the sand there, and I lost control too completely to be able to get between the barrels, so I hit one. You know, they're spaced quite widely. You should be able to get between them.
I don't like that car.
Oh, it is. Tough luck. I'm just going, the whole race I've been making little mistakes because I've been thinking so much about never sliding the wheels. You know, everywhere. Don't slide the wheels at any cost, and it makes you put more emphasis on that than on maintaining real good control. Have you ever had that experience? No, I don't drive that way.
You've been a bad boy. I saw it happen from down the airport. I saw the clouds of dust. You know you had it in the bag. Stirling Start. That means you would have won that. Because you got enough rubber in it.
I know. I was being very, very careful with the rubber. And it looks like it paid off. Why don't we have Joe measure them and take the number of laps that I had already run and just see where we would have been. 26 laps. Hell, they aren't even half gone.
Right. Did we have the measurement?
I'm listening. I would have made it without a tire change.
You were 17 seconds behind on the start.
Behind what?
You had a bad
Behind
start.
everybody, a terrible
Yeah.
start. Bad break.
It just didn't kick over. I think it's a poor idea, you know? When you say, well, let's see if it'll work, and you start it the first time. Then the second time it won't start. The best thing is to just leave it alone.
The idle screw should be further open, too.
I think so.
because it has too many symptoms of being a cold engine all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Must be like a
Terrible week. Well, we don't know how much gas we use then for the 26 lap. It's enough for 75 laps for these tires.
Not long after, Shelby's tie rods gave out, probably due to the excessive tire wear, and he stopped.
That damn tire went 9 laps. That is leaking. I couldn't figure out what was the matter, and I slowed down just a little bit. And I charged it through that fast lap. Oh, I saw the guts on all over the road. Finally happened. It won't turn to the left. Look at that Corvette. It washes out going to the left. When it blew the first time, I ran over one of those light things, wheel in, one of those little light things set up about that high.
But he got to the lead. Yeah. See, if the rest, I'm sure that if the rest of us would have stayed in, he would have changed his tires, because he wouldn't have been able to balloon foot around like he's doing right now. You see? He's just crawling around now. Look, if you can give yourself 3 more seconds on this course, it makes the 100% difference in the tire life. 100%, maybe. You understand? So now that he knows that he's got performance on the rest of the cars that are left, he doesn't have to use the tires in order to get the lap time, you see? Those tires that he had, with all the rubber on them, there must have been too little support to get a fantastic adhesion on this course because of the roughness of it, you see? And there must have been too much of a depth to the blocks on the tread, and it broke them off, tore them off.
Well, they didn't wear off.
They didn't wear off, they just tore off.
Unless they are very fresh, they are right by air.
Well, let me tell you what I saw. You know, I was behind Portago for quite a while. Right behind him. And whenever he even started to go around the corner, like the left-hand bend there, you know, he was going around just a little bit harder than I was. Not a lot. Thank you, Marion. Thanks very much. Just a little bit faster than I was, you understand? I was being a little bit more careful than he was. Not much. I could just see black powder just fly off the tire. You know? Well, I could see his tire on the road, and the minute his car would get the least little bit sideways, I could just see a black haze off the tire. Rubber.
And when the race is over, and Moss has coasted to an easy victory with Maston Gregory second, then comes the post-mortem. And who is better qualified to conduct it than the drivers themselves? Here's Portago, who finished third.
No, io voglio alternative. Chi ha vinto? Secondo? Ah, 2 giri di più, sono io secondo.
Marquis, you should have had my tires.
And Gregory.
Nice
What happened to you? You
Oh, did I go?
Huh?
I ran into a barrel.
God, I didn't know that was Moss in front of me.
Did you think you were going to get it?
No, I didn't think I was in front. I thought I was way behind. I didn't know where the hell I was. Had a lot of fun.
Nice race.
Nice ride, man.
Boy, does this thing go. Thank you. Oh, is this fantastic. Never went over 7,500.
Really?
About the first 3 laps, I went 78 in 4th gear, and then I slowed down, turned the tack back, and went 75.
Beautiful ride on
What a Hamlin little machine.
Are they a terrific car, man?
Hey. Huh?
Wonderful car.
Well, look, it was cool as a cucumber. It's all fiberglass, and this kept me in place. So I never had to. I relaxed every muscle in my body for the whole race. And about 3 times I tensed my. Yeah, I
2
know.
more laps and you wouldn't have been second.
I know it, my God.
We were watching you, bud.
Well, why didn't you tell me?
That's what I was giving you, that minus signal on the board.
Well, I didn't
plus
see the
signal.
last 2 laps, but he's 44 seconds behind him.
No, well, he was only got up to 34, and there was only about 2 laps to go then. And your
Well, I
tires weren't
slowed
that
way down because, hell, Well, I didn't slow way down.
No, you
either,
slowed
but-
down 2 seconds a lap.
But I wouldn't have done that.
What happened to Carol Shelby?
He blew
He
tire
blew
after
a tires.
How many did he blow?
Oh, he blew 3.
I went by him when he blew the first one. That one.
Well, he was in.
What happened to all the Jaguars?
Louis Barrow broke the shock and blew 2 tires.
That son of a, that Ferrari, you know what he, not Ferrari, Constantine, on the first lap at the first corner, he
he's
comes
terrible.
crashing into me.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I got a good start and I was
Yeah, I know
about
you did.
17th the second lap.
He hit
I
me.
know, I wondered what happened there.
I had a Corvette hit me, but Constantine hit me too. Boy, that was a hell of a battle.
Huh?
What'd you finish, third?
Third.
And all I did was just cruise around. I didn't have any tire trouble or anything.
Well, Moss, how far was Moss ahead of Moss?
He was ahead of Maston a minute and 12 seconds.
Now, Moss slapped me, and then I repassed him, right?
He was in the pits for gas when you passed him.
Oh. Luigi? The first 3 laps, I went 7,800 in 4th gear. Then after that, I didn't want to go fast, so I reached under and I turned it back to 7. And then I never went over 75 for the whole rest of the race, except the first 3 laps. And that was just in 4th. How's the Testarossa go? Okay? Now, every time I turn the 214 lap, it's when I'd have to duck behind the screen following somebody through a corner so I wouldn't bust my goggles. And I'd duck and lose about a second. Oh, we're a lot of fun.
Well, we could see every time you did that there was some traffic came along right
I
behind
could
you.
sell some Testarossas. Boy, does this car handle, wow.
Here's Portago with Hill.
And once it uses up the top rubber, that will continue for some.
They wear better as they get further down. But I was trying to be very careful. You know, I was right behind you, and I could see this black haze come off your tires every time you just corner in the least bit.
But you know what made me so?
But I was
I
almost
saw
going
you on
on
the
the
first
tail.
curve, and your tire was over this way, and the car was over that way.
Oh, yours was that way all the time.
Yeah, horrifying. When you
There's
realize-
lots of things that when you see you...
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
So this wasn't a week, so.
No fun.
And so on, right up through the victory banquet, and often resumed at the next race. But for the appreciative ear, the arguing, the discussing are only a neutral background for the real sounds, the important sounds, the sounds we can hear even when there is no race, the sound of racing cars at speed.